I originally concepted this video as a pretty classic versus video of mine where I compare two shoes, the Endorphin Speed 4 and the Endorphin Pro 4, and try to give you a verdict about which one is better for you. Because traditionally the Endorphin series has been sort of a either or. Do you go with the Speed or do you go with the Pro? And they had a lot of overlap as far as which shoe do you want to race in, train in, and do everything else in. But after running in both these shoes quite a bit, especially the Speed 4, I actually see these shoes now as not so much an either or. They are definitely shoes that I think are designed to work together. Now, you can use them independently of one another, but I think they work well together as a set. It's not an either or. You could look at one of these shoes and still say, like, I prefer this over that for X, Y, and Z, and that's what I'm going to try to get into in this video. I'm also going to go into how to look at these two shoes in a rotation, how to build a rotation around one or both, and really where I think their strengths and weaknesses are. Since this actually is a versus video, let's start with the specs just so we know what we're talking about with both of these shoes. Starting with the Saucony Endorphin Speed 4, we have 38 millifoam in the heel, 30 millifoam in the forefoot, giving you an 8 mil drop. The shoe weighs 8.3 ounces or 235 grams, and that's for the standard US men's size 9 reference size that everyone uses. Additionally, I'm pulling my specs from Running Warehouse because they measure shoes cross-brand consistently, and I find their measurements, especially weights, to match the shoes that I actually purchase and wear myself. The Speed 4 has a full PowerRun PB midsole with a winged nylon plate. Now the wings are both on the lateral and medial side of the plate in the midfoot, and it has Saucony Speedroll technology and geometry, which is the toe spring in the front of the plate, which gives the shoe a very rolling feeling off the toe without feeling like you're falling off a cliff. Moving on to the Saucony Endorphin Pro 4, we have 40 millifoam in the heel, 32 millifoam in the forefoot, giving you an 8 mil drop. The shoe weighs 7.7 ounces or 218 grams, again for the standard US men's size 9 reference size that everyone uses. Now, the Pro 4 is actually the racer of these two shoes, so the fact that it weighs a little less is not a surprise here, but I will say on foot, you're not really going to notice a big weight difference between these two shoes. In the Endorphin Pro 4, we have a PowerRun PB midsole with a PowerRun HG core. Now, PowerRun HG is Saucony's newer foam that has better resiliency, better energy return, and you definitely do feel that in this shoe. As with the Speed 4, the Pro 4 also has Saucony Speedroll technology and geometry, which again is the toe spring or the curve up in the toe area of the plate that's in this shoe. Now, the Endorphin Pro 4 has a carbon fiber plate and is considerably stiffer than the Speed 4, so you get the Speedroll sort of roll forward, but you also get a little snap from the carbon fiber plate in the Pro 4 as well. Looking at the weights of my actual two pairs of these shoes, in the Speed 4, I have 239 grams in the left, 237 grams in the right. 2 gram difference between a pair of shoes is nothing nowadays. And in the Pro 4, I have 219 grams in the left, 218.5 grams in the right, half a gram. Basically, both of these shoes are very well made, even though I've commented that I don't like the upper of the Speed 4, and I do think it's kind of cheap feeling, kind of baggy fitting, ill fitting. But overall, these shoes are both very well made, and the fact that the actual weights are very close to the specs from the manufacturer really speaks to that. And comparing the outsoles of these two shoes and the contact patch, I have 11.5 centimeters in the widest point in the forefoot of the Speed 4, 6.8 in the waist, 9.8 in the heel. For the Pro 4, I have 11.7 centimeters across the widest point in the forefoot, 7.4 in the midfoot or waist of the shoe, and 8.9 in the heel. Now, these shoes are extremely similar, and I would say they're both extremely stable. The Pro 4 does feel a little wider, and I think that's more the width in the midfoot. It just feels like there's more shoe there than the Speed 4. But the Speed 4, you definitely feel that wider heel, the heel flare that's on both the medial and lateral side in that shoe. You definitely do feel that. And I will say for a heel striker, midfoot striker, I think the Speed 4 is really optimal. Again, for a heel striker, midfoot striker, I think the Pro 4 actually works extremely well too. It may be the best carbon-plated super shoe out there for heel strikers and midfoot strikers. And lastly, looking at the outsole rubber on both these shoes, as you can see, they're nearly identical. If anything, the Pro 4 has just a little bit more down that lateral side, which I think will just speak to the durability of that shoe. But overall, same lattice pattern, same rubber compound, same sort of feel and compliance to the ground, though in the Pro 4, since it is a carbon-plated shoe, you're not getting as much ground feel as you do in the Speed 4 with the very flexible nylon plate. But again, both these shoes are pretty much the same when it comes to the outsole. This is a matrix I've used on this channel before, and I think it actually applies to these two shoes because they do have quite a bit of overlap, and I do expect both of these shoes to be able to cover these 4 categories from easy to max effort running. And I think traditionally both Endorphins, the Speed and the Pro, have also done that. So if we look at the Endorphin Speed 4 first, again, the real sweet spot for this shoe is the red area, which is really that steady running, that sort of 30 seconds-ish off of your race pace. Now I'm a marathoner, so race pace for me is marathon pace, but that's really where that shoe is happiest. Just a little bit off your race pace, somewhere in that steady, easy range, and the shoe does go into the easy running very well. The issue with the Speed 4 is that once you get up into threshold and above, especially when you're getting to max effort or even a race type environment, I think the flexibility and the softer nylon plate, the more flexible nylon plate of the Speed 4 work against it a little bit. It just doesn't seem as structured as some other plated shoes out there. It's not that you can't do that type of running, threshold or max effort running in the Speed 4. It's just not where it's happiest. It's just not where it's best. So if we put the Pro 4 on this, you can see that the Pro 4 actually is really happy in the threshold and max effort area. And I would say it's probably happiest at the edge of threshold, really getting into your upper end of race pace or race pace plus. Like if you need to pick it up in a race, I think that's where the Pro 4 is going to be the happiest. Now, when we're getting into really max effort stuff, when we're talking about those really hard intervals or reps, or if you're, say, a marathoner, but you're going to race and really push hard in a 5K, that's where I think the Pro 4 maybe isn't ideal because there is a lot of shoe there. Again, it's not that it can't do that. It's just I think there's better shoes out there for that. But for what most people want the Pro 4 for, which is racing, marathon, half marathon, road racing in general, and probably using it as a workout shoe in addition to the Speed 4, again, you can see the overlap between these two shoes is pretty good. And that would make sense because they're designed to work together, and they definitely do work together. So as I've been running in both these shoes, I've been thinking about how to build a rotation around each or both. And I've come up with 3 things that I think they probably work the best with. So that covers a 3-shoe rotation: a daily trainer, a tempo trainer or fast trainer, and a race shoe. Now the first one starts with the Endorphin Speed 4. And that is a great tempo trainer, super trainer, fast trainer, however you want to define this category, but it's the daily trainer plus. It's the daily trainer that has a little bit more to it, and that is definitely what the Speed 4 really excels at. But the race shoe that I find that it probably pairs the best with is actually the Nike Vaporfly 3. Now, what's interesting here is from a spec standpoint, stack height, drop, they're identical. They're both 38-30 with an 8mm drop. And I talked about this in my initial impressions or 50-mile review for the Speed 4, but I think Saucony's engineers figured out something early on about the Vaporfly. And I'm talking, a couple years ago when the original Endorphin came out back in 2020, that the flex in the combination of the way the plate and the foam work together and the flex in that system is very important, which is why I think the Speed 4 has so much flex in it. It is a plated shoe, but that nylon plate is very flexible. And part of the magic of the Vaporfly, including the Vaporfly 3, is there is more flex in that shoe compared to other carbon plated shoes on the market. Now, there is considerably more flex in the Speed 4 than there is the Vaporfly 3, but if you're used to running in the Vaporfly 3 and you've always wanted a tempo shoe that sort of works in that same ballpark, sort of gives you similar feelings when you're running in it, I would say the Speed 4 is really kind of ideal to pair with the Vaporfly 3. It's actually very strange. And then the daily trainer that I would put into this combo is just the one I've used forever in combination with the Vaporfly, and that's the Pegasus, specifically the Pegasus 40. Now, we have just seen the release, the press release of the Pegasus 41. I don't know if the Pegasus 41 will swap in here, but I ran a lot in the Pegasus 40 in 2023. I loved it. I find it works very well with the Vaporfly 3, but I always wanted something between them, something that was a little bit more structured, a little bit faster, a little bit more, let's say, modern feeling than the Peg 40, but I didn't necessarily always want to go to do every sort of faster, longer run in the Vaporfly 3, though I did for quite some time. And again, that's where the Speed 4 really fits in extremely well between these two shoes. You get the great, flexible, neutral, natural feel of the Peg as your daily trainer, non-plated daily trainer. You get the excellent Vaporfly 3 race shoe, and then you have the just sort of everything else in between that with the Speed 4. This is a really great rotation that I think would serve a lot of people very well, myself included. Now, sticking with the Endorphin Speed 4 as the center of a second rotation, again, for your tempo trainer, super trainer, fast trainer, I think another way of looking at this, and this is maybe the most obvious one, is you pair that with the Pro 4 as your race shoe, and you pair that with the upcoming Saucony Triumph 22 as your daily, non-plated daily trainer. This rotation, all Saucony, but it feels like these three shoes are really designed to work together. They all have Power NPB as their primary foam in the midsole. The Triumph 22 is essentially, to me, kind of what the Shift used to be in the Endorphin line. I know it's not one-to-one, I know it's not exactly, but it is filling that same purpose to me. Now, I'm not running the Triumph 22, just I'm going from everything that I've seen Saucony talk about this shoe and why they've tweaked it the way they've tweaked it with Power NPB. So I'm actually going to be very curious to get a pair of Triumph 22s and really put this rotation to practice and really see how it works. But the thing I was thinking about this rotation is this feels like a three-shoe rotation that you can buy in the spring, race and train in all summer, all fall, into your turkey trot in November, and probably use the Triumph and the Speed and probably the Pro 4 for your winter training going into the next season. So basically, if you're a runner who wants to buy your rotation in the spring and not think about shoes again all year, this feels like a rotation for you because Power NPB is going to be very durable. Each one of these shoes is going to be very durable. This is going to last you through the entire racing, running, and training season. And I think it's going to do really well for you. Again, this feels like a rotation that is really designed to work together extremely well. Now, if we stick with the Endorphin Pro 4, there's a shoe that to me pairs very well with the Pro 4, and it may seem a little bit strange if you watch some of my other content, but let me explain. So as I was running the Pro 4, it always has felt to me very much like a plated Asics Superblast. So if you're one of those runners, and I know there's a lot of them who love the Superblast, I love the Superblast, but I don't run in it all the time. The Endorphin Pro 4 feels like a Superblast with a plate in it. So if you've ever been running in the Superblast and you love it, but you just wish there was a plate in or just a little bit more to the shoe, that to me feels like the Endorphin Pro 4. They're not a one-to-one. They definitely do not feel the same, but there's a connection there and they do feel like they're related to one another. And again, the Pro 4 just feels like a Superblast with just a little bit more in it, a little bit more structure. Now, if you watch my other content, you know that I've always been comparing the Superblast to someone who likes the high plate configuration, something like a Metaspeed Sky or a Nike Alphafly, and the Endorphin Pro 4 is a low plate configuration. But again, the way the foams work, the sandwich of Power NPB and Power NHG in the Endorphin Pro, it feels like there's a lot of connection between these two shoes. And frankly, this is a rotation that if you don't want to buy a lot of shoes, you are pretty much covered, at least for half and full marathon racing, between these two shoes for quite a bit of your training and racing. But if you did want to add a daily trainer into this, I would actually suggest that the Hoka Mach 6 actually makes a lot of sense here. Now, I did do a comparison of the Mach 6 and the Endorphin Speed 4, and I think you could also put the Speed 4 in here as your daily trainer, but I can't subscribe to a plated shoe, even one with the flexible plate of the Speed 4 as a daily trainer. And yes, the Super Blast doesn't have a plate in it, but the Super Blast is also much more stiff than your traditional daily trainer. So it is sort of in between. Is it the end of the world if you only have the Super Blast and the Endorphin Pro 4? No. But if you really want to min-max this rotation, the Mach 6 does have a similar feel to both of these shoes with how it toes off, how it rolls forward, the amount of foam in it. And I think a combination of these three shoes really makes a lot of sense to me, especially as I've been running in the Mach 6 and the Pro 4 quite a bit recently. So as you can see, this really isn't an either or to me. It can be. This shoe is great for a shoe that I just want to throw on and really use for anything. It's an easy shoe to run in. Even though I don't love the fit of this upper, it's a shoe that I can just put on, and if I'm feeling good that day, I can pick it up. If I'm feeling kind of sluggish or, a little bit slower that day, I can go easy in this. This shoe is not one I really need to plan my run around. I can just go out and run by feel. That's a great shoe. This is a great carbon plated super shoe. It's maybe a little bit more stable. It definitely, I think, is favoring heel strikers and midfoot strikers over forefoot strikers. I'm a forefoot striker. It works for me, but I think it works probably better for heel strikers and midfoot strikers. But this is a fast shoe. It's a fast, stable shoe that fits and feels like a normal shoe. This doesn't feel as extreme as a lot of the super shoes that are out there. So it's another good option for runners that are maybe a little bit heavier, have a little bit wider foot, though it's not a wide shoe, but I think it has a very good accommodating upper. And I think it's great for heel strikers and midfoot strikers. So these two shoes I think are both great. I think they both work really well. You can pair them together. You can pair them with other shoes as I showed you in this video. And I don't think you can go wrong with either one of these. Thank you for making it to the end of the video. If you find this content useful, consider subscribing. You'll see more content from me pop up in your feed. If not, drop a like on this video because it helps this channel continue to grow, which I always appreciate. And with that, I'll catch you in the next one.